Hey guys, for those of you who own a Hyundai Santa Fe, some of you may have noticed a problem with the operation of your interior map reader light console with regards to the operation of the lights. Now right now, if I throw my door selector switch to off, and I turn my lights on manually, I see that they both work fine. The bulbs are working okay, both bulbs are fine. If I throw my switch to the on position, all the way to the left there, only one of the lights goes on. Now in on, both lights should be working. So that's kind of odd, despite the fact that I can still throw it on manually. Now, if I put my switch to the middle, to the door position, and I open my door, again, that same light turns on, but both should be on at this point. Again, I can still trigger it manually. So I know that it's nothing to do with the bulb itself, but there's something to do with the internal circuitry that's causing a problem with the operation of this light over here. Now, I've already disassembled this unit to try to diagnose it, so I figured out what the problem is. I'm going to do it with you guys on camera here, and it's really just a couple of cents to replace a broken diode inside. If you take it to the dealer to fix this problem, they'll just tell you to change the whole module. It could run you anywhere between $180 to $200 for the module itself, plus labor. So you could be spending a lot more money than you have to. It really only takes about, say, 15 to 20 minutes of time and a couple of tools. So we'll go over that today here. So this is a 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. For models that are older than 2013, the circuit board configuration will be slightly different inside, but it's still going to follow the same general principles in terms of the failed component that you'll be replacing. Now, in order to disassemble this unit, the first thing you want to do is open up your sunglasses holder and let it pop down. And there's going to be two screws inside that you're going to want to undo. They're going to be located right here. So there's one and there's the other. These are just two small Phillips screws that you'll be undoing. So I've taken those two out already, and I've loosened up the module. Now, in order to fully remove the module, you can put this back up. You're going to want to start by prying down on the front edge over here. You can't, you won't be able to pry down on the back edge. So the side closest to your windshield will be the side that you want to start prying down. There's these two metal tabs on the side that you're going to want to loosen off right here. So these are clipped kind of around the like the mesh, I guess, inside. So that's gonna be what you want to pull down. So you're going to be pulling that down on the front until it loosens off, and then you can slide it out from the front. You won't be able to pull down the front because, as you can see, there's these two clips or two tabs that insert up inside here, so that's why you can't pull it down from the front. So you can let the unit hang, and on the inside there's a 6-pin connector here. It's an 8-pin configuration, but there's only 6 pins, so you're going to want to pull that out, and that can just dangle. You can drive the car without this in place if you want, if you need to diagnose and figure out what you need. So I've been driving around with it for about a week off. So this module is now free, and now I can take this inside and we'll figure out what's going on. Okay, so I'm in the workshop here, and I've got the interior map reader lights module in front of me. And if I take a look on the other side, we'll just do a quick overview of this unit here before we start delving into the troubleshooting. So you can see I've already marked off which side is bad here. So this is the side of the light that wasn't working, with this this pink sticky note indicates that. So if I zoom in, all right, so we'll first start taking a look. This is where the connector is. So this is a 6-pin connector, except that one of the pins is not being used. So pin number 1 over here, well, there is no pin number 1 because it's not being used, but there's 5 other pins. So that's pin number 1 missing, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's where your main connector is. For the rest of the module, this little thing here is a switch, that push switch. And same with on this side as well. And there's not too many other circuit components per se, except if we look at the front here, there's these two circuit components here. These are diodes. So this diode is indicated with a little diode symbol right here. So the positive side and the negative side. So these are polarity sensitive. You can see here on this side as well. So negative and positive. These are really the only circuit components on the board. These are where the light bulbs go. These are the light bulb holders in here. Now on the models that are before 2013, there will only be one diode. So the circuit is kind of fused into one. In the 2014 to 2019 models, I believe, the diodes are separated. So the circuit is kind of separated. So that's, it's not really too complex of a circuit per se, but for testing purposes, it is important to know how the circuit diagram is laid out. So I did want to take a look at how the circuit's laid out, and I went into the Hyundai Santa Fe repair manuals. It's just on their website. And so if I look up the Hyundai Santa Fe overhead console lamp repair procedures, this is what I get. And there's two wiring diagrams. There's a general wiring diagram, and then there's another wiring diagram for a panorama sunroof. Now, these are very blurry diagrams, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on. They are very simplistic wiring diagrams, but they do show kind of what's going on here. And if we look, we see, where's our diodes here? I think these are our two diodes in the circuit here. So that kind of gives me an idea as to what's going on with how the circuit's laid out. But I did want a little bit more information especially in terms of the pinout diagrams as well. So for that, I went to a Russian website, and this is Portal Diagnostov. So I guess somehow the Russians got the wiring diagrams for the Hyundai, well, actually for all cars. This is just the Santa Fe Sport 2014, but there's all cars here. So if you start at home, you get all models, you get all years and all makes. So yeah, there's a lot. And under the Hyundai Santa Fe Sport 2014, you get wiring diagrams for air conditioning, anti-lock brakes, anti-theft, the BCM module, cooling fan, electronic power steering, all sorts of stuff here. And it goes on and on and on. And we need the interior lights right here. So the interior lights wiring diagram is the one that I selected, and that brings me to this diagram over here. Now these are SVG diagrams, so it's easiest to view them on the computer. Printing them out is not that great because the lines are so thin. But if I zoom in and then take a screenshot on the computer, this is what I get. So it's a lot easier to see this wiring diagram here. So this box constitutes this module over here. So we're going to start looking at this and seeing what these pinout diagrams are so we know where to troubleshoot. So if I take a look, I have 6 pins here. 1, 3, 6, 4, 2, and 5. So the 6 pins. Now the one is actually not used, so that's disconnected. Actually, there is no wire coming into it at all anyways. But we do have pins 3 and 6, 4, 2, and 5. So what do these pins do? Well, pin number 3 brings in ACC power. So this is plus 12 volt, and that's ACC. Pin number 6 brings in 12 volts of power as well. So that's plus 12 volts, but that's actually battery power. So that's our battery. Those are important for two different functionalities of the stuff in the module. Pin number 4 actually is a traveler wire that goes to the rear room lamp, which is basically the dome lamp in the back, like over the back seats. So this goes to rear dome light. And then you have the black is your ground wire, and then your brown is actually this pin number 5. This goes to your BCM module. It's the body control module. And what does that do? Well, BCM is the module that controls, or I guess that senses, the door opening switches. So your BCM module will determine whether or not the door is open or closed, and it will complete a circuit to ground, basically. So it kind of functions as a ground, kind of like this, but it only activates that ground circuit, I guess completes the circuit to ground once the door is open. So now that we kind of know what all of these go to, now we can kind of figure out where we're going to troubleshoot. So the 12 volt ACC comes into the, basically just feeds the mood lamp. What is the mood lamp? Well, the mood lamp is this little thing right here. This is basically an LED that shines into like the cup holder stick shift area, and it basically just lights up that region, when the car is on. And it's ACC because the power is only activated when the ignition switch is on. So this mood lamp only turns on once your ignition is on. So that basically feeds the LED in your mood lamp, and then it completes the circuit to ground after. Where's ground? Right here. Over here. So we don't really need to worry about that circuit. 12-volt battery. This is where we're kind of more interested in what things are going on here. So the 12-volt battery, so the battery will power your lights at all times. So we're going to have the left map lamp and the right map lamp being powered by the battery at all times. The circuit then goes through these two arrows. So these are your diodes right here, the left diode and the right diode. The circuit then keeps on going into our little door selector switch here, which is basically, you can either have it on, off, or door. For the on position, if the circuit completes to the on, that circuit gets completed to ground. If the circuit is off, there is no completed circuit to ground at all. So basically the power can't flow, the lights don't go on. If the selector switch is selected to door, that gets fed through to the BCM module, and that's where your BCM module or body control module will sense whether the door is open or not, and then if the door is open, it completes a circuit to ground, and that's how power is fed down through there to ground out. That's how the lights turn on. If we take a look at the physical switch position on the board, this is the area of the circuit board where it's located. So you can see here, this bar over here, it represents this aspect of the circuit diagram where the power flows in. And then these 3 pins, or potentially 3 pins over here, 1, 2, and 3, represents this region where the power flows out, 1, 2, and 3. So the power will flow in from the battery on this side over here, and based on where I move my switch, it will select one of the 3 pins on the other side based on where that power flows to. So in this pin position over here, this is the on position. So power flows from the battery. Power flows in from the battery and right through to ground, and that's how the circuit is completed. If I move the switch over to the middle, this is now the door position. So power flows in from the battery, the 12-volt from the battery, and then it goes, basically power flows through towards the BCM module, and the BCM module controls the ground, closing to ground. And if I move it into the far position here, this is basically off, the off position. So power flows in and it doesn't flow anywhere else. There is no contact there, so power can't flow through, so the lights just stay off. So that's what this module looks like based off the wiring diagram here. So now that I know what the wiring diagrams look like, I can use these diagrams to look for potential points of failure of the circuit components. And there's very few points really in this module that could potentially fail. It could be the map light switch, so the switch that turns the lights on and off, those ones, which would be these here. I know that those haven't failed though, because I can turn the lights on and off using them manually, and they do go on and off, so those haven't failed. It could be the bulbs themselves, but I know that the bulbs are both still working. It could be the diodes here, or it could be the door selector switch. So over here. Now, I know it's not the door selector switch because I was manipulating this and the lights were going on and off based off the switch position, so I know it's not that either. So the only thing left would be just those 2 diodes. So I do want to do a little test on those 2 diodes to see which one's working or which ones have failed if they have. All right, now in order to test the diodes, we're going to need to have a multimeter that has diode testing capability. Now this is a Fluke 117 true RMS multimeter, and if you look on the right side here, there's a little icon of a diode. That's what we need to select in order to start testing the diode. Now diodes, like I mentioned, are polarity sensitive, so power will be sent through the positive lead into the diode, and then it will be picked up on the other side of the diode by the negative lead. And that's how you can test both sides of the diode. You're going to have to test both sides and get a reading. Now the multimeter will send about 0.5 volt through the diode to be picked up by the negative lead. So that's how we're going to be able to see if power can flow in one direction but not the other. So let's just zoom in a little bit here. All right, so I know that this diode still works, so I'm going to test this one first. Now if I look at the little polarity indicator on my diode, the power is able to flow through this direction. So I want to apply my power on one side, and then I'm going to apply my detector to the other, and I get about a 1/2 volt going through, so that means that's good. It should not be going through the other way. So if I switch it, if I apply power here and detect it here, I shouldn't get anything, which I'm not. So that means that that diode's working. If I do the same on the other one, so if I'm looking at my diode indicator, it's indicating that power is flowing through in this direction. So I'm going to apply my power here and my detector here, and I'm still showing power going through. Now if I flip it, power is being applied here now, and detectors here. It shows that there's nothing. So technically it looks like both diodes are working. But if that's the case, then there's technically nothing wrong with this module then, right? Well, the problem is these diodes have to be isolated from the entire circuit. And the problem that I'm having here is that there's still light bulbs in place here. So they're technically participating in completing the circuit, and that's causing some faulty readings with my diodes, or some false positives with my diodes. So technically I do need to do a little bit more disassembly, get the light bulbs out of here, and then retest my diodes when they're fully isolated from the circuit that way, and then I'll be able to determine the true readings of these diodes. So I will do a little bit more disassembly. So there's two ways that I could remove the light bulbs from this assembly here. First, I could go through from the front here and remove these little diffuser panels and pop up the panels and pop out the lights. I'm a little bit nervous about doing that because the clips in there are so tight and I don't want to break the clip. So I could also go from the back side, and what I could do is I could remove there's 2 screws here, and then there's about 6 clips which will let me take this whole black portion off. It will be easier for me later on to have this black portion separate from the rest of this gray part. So I will remove the screws and the clips from here. You don't have to. You don't really have to do that. You don't have to do what I'm going to be doing in a later step. So you could technically just remove the bulbs by going in through these 2 diffuser panels. That'll probably be the easiest. What I'm going to do is going to go just to a little bit of an extra step later on. But what I'm going to do, so let me remove these screws here. So it's just 2 Phillips screws. They come out. And then there's these little clips that are holding there, and same on the other side. That's 4, 5, and 6. So that's going to have to get removed. It's easiest if you take a little flathead screwdriver to start loosening things off and working things out. So it looks like it's easiest if you start at the front clip, kind of get that a little bit loose, and then jam a screwdriver down this one. Okay, and then I was going to say then get this one, but it looks like it loosens off. There we go. So now that that's loose, it still feels like there's something connected, and that's the wire that goes to that little dome light. So that's just going to have to get disconnected. There's a little tab in the back there that you got to squeeze or kind of depress, and then that can lift up. All right, so there's my module removed, and I just want to get rid of the bulbs, so I'm just going to pry the tab back and kick the bulb out. Good, and that gets rid of the bulbs. All right, now let me retest these diodes with those bulbs removed. All right, so I'm going to test the one that I know works first. So I'm going to apply power, and then I'm going to apply my detector, and I do get a reading 0.5, 0.6 volts. Now I'm going to switch, so I'm going to apply power on the other side and detect it, and nothing. So that's good, which means that this diode is still working. It's preventing power from flowing backwards. Let's test the other one. So I'm going to apply power, and then I'm going to apply my detector, and I'm getting nothing. It does work, but I'm not getting anything. I'm going to apply power here and detect it, and nothing. So that's a different reading now. I'm getting nothing on either side. So that's different, and that's because I don't have that light bulb in place. So this diode is now completely isolated from the circuit, and that light bulb is not causing any type of continuity there. So that's why it's important. Take out your light bulbs when you're testing your diodes to see which one's working or not working. So now I know that, and I can confirm that this diode is not working because there's no flow of power in either direction, which means this diode is not letting power flow through. It's not letting it flow either way, which means it's definitely blowing. We should be getting a reading something like this. So these diodes that come OEM from the manufacturer, pre-installed, are 1 amp diodes. These are 4000 series diodes. So this is a 1N4007. This is a 1 amp diode. And if you have the 2014 to 2019 models, you're going to have 2 of them on your circuit board to replace. If you have 2013 and previous, you're just going to have the one that you're going to have to replace. Now I'm going to be replacing it with a 3 amp diode, and it's a little bit larger in this case. This is a 5400 series, or this is in particular a 1N5408, and they came in a pack of 10. I think this was like $4 or $5, but one of these is just a couple of cents. If you go to an electronics store, you can get this probably for like 50 cents or something like that. It's basically nothing. And in this case, I'm going to have 2 to replace. And you just want to make sure that before you install it, you just want to make sure that your diode is working correctly. So I'm just going to put it into a little holder here. I see my polarity band is right here, so that's very important to keep that in mind when you're installing it. So I'm just going to test this to make sure that we are getting the same readings or like a working reading. So power is not flowing through, that's good, and then power should be flowing through in this direction, which it is, 0.5 volts. So that's exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to test both of them before I swap them out. I'm just going to switch both of them while I'm here because I'd rather not have the second one fail after going through this whole process. Now, because it is a little bit larger, it is going to sit above the profile of the circuit board. It won't matter though because there is clearance with the roof, so it doesn't matter if it sits a little bit above that trough. Now, in order for me to securely attach it, it looks like these have somehow just been press welded or press soldered or something onto these little pads here. I'm thinking I'm actually just going, once I remove these 2 diodes, I might just drill a little hole through each of the pads there, so then I can actually bend these little leads into the hole and solder it into the hole. And that way I get a little bit more of a mechanical connection versus just being held by solder, because to be honest, it doesn't look like there is solder on the board here. I'm not sure how it's been assembled. So that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do, but we will see as we go. So part of the reason why I wanted to remove this black component was so that I could much more easily drill holes through these little solder pads here. In order for me to keep it nice and flat, I'm just going to remove these 2 little toggle switches for the map lights. They basically just get slid out of the way. All right. So now with those out of the way, this will lay completely flat, and I can work a lot easier while I'm doing my soldering and while I'm drilling my holes. All right, well, this is the first time I'll be doing this, so we'll see if this works. I'm going to try to desolder these 2 components here. If I can't desolder them, I'm probably just going to have to cut them off. I'm going to be using a soldering iron, and I've got my cleaner here and a little bit of solder just to transfer the heat. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah, it doesn't look like these have been soldered, because if it was soldered, the heat would have definitely been transferring through by now, and this would be completely loose. So it looks like these are maybe just kind of press welded on or something. I'm not sure. All right, we'll go to plan B. Let's see if we can just kind of bend these off. Interesting. Yeah, it looks like, I'm not sure how it's attached. Some kind of press weld. I wonder if I could just solder directly onto this residual tab here, and I don't have to drill through then. Yeah, I might just try soldering directly onto whatever residual lead is on there, and then there's no need to actually drill a new hole. That might be the smartest idea. So I'm going to have to put a little bit of a bend into this to get it to seat where I kind of want it, and have the lead end up a little flatter to where that existing lead is. Okay, so it looks like the bends are pretty good. I am getting good contact with the leads onto the existing leads on the pads there. So I should be able to just apply a little bit of solder around the new diode leads, around the new ones and the old ones, and that should be enough to hold it onto the pad. I don't think that there's any more need to drill holes through the pads or anything. I should be able to just solder to the existing leads, and it should be okay. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive or some hot glue around the body of the diode just to hold it in place, and then I'll do the soldering. Okay, well, there's the result. That seems to have done the job. I'm just going to check the trace. I'm going to check from the underside to make sure I have continuity. Good. And good. Okay. So that seems to be working as expected. Great. So I'm going to be doing the other one. As soon as I get that on, then we should be able to reassemble everything back together and reinstall it. I'm just going to put down a little drop of flux paste because it doesn't seem like the heat is quite doing what it has to. All right, so there's the second one that's been soldered on. You know, I applied a little bit of flux paste to it, and I think that was probably a good idea. I did get a little bit more diffusion of the solder, even onto that metal trace, I think. Or maybe not, I don't know. Hard to tell, but looks like using the flux just had a little bit better heat transfer through the entire assembly there. So anyways, that's completed. One thing, make sure when you're replacing these, just make sure you note the polarity of your diode. So that little band has to be at the tip of the arrow, or towards the left side there, and this band has to be towards the right side, tip of the arrow. So let me just check on the underside again to make sure that we have functionality. Good, nothing, and when we switch it, we're getting a reading. Okay, so we have contact made for both diodes. Both have been replaced successfully, and now we're ready to start reassembling. So to be honest, I didn't really have to completely remove this black housing from the original dome, because I didn't really end up drilling holes through the pads anyways. So I don't think you really need to be completely removing this. I guess I changed my mind halfway through, so lesson learned. But I think it's probably easier if you just leave everything assembled in terms of both of these parts. Just leave them both assembled, and that way you don't have to worry about dismantling so much stuff. So I'm going to start reassembling. I'll just put these switches back in. So there's the reassembled module. Now, if you didn't want to go through any of the diagnostic work or troubleshooting work to figure out what was wrong, and you had the same symptomatic problem that I did with that one map light not turning on with the door switch, you could just go ahead and just swap out the diodes right from the get-go, because that's 99% of the time that's the problem, and you wouldn't have to do any disassembly to the unit. You could work on the unit just like this. So you unplug it from the car, take it inside, break off the old diode, resolder the new diode, and away you go. So if you didn't want to do any of that disassembly and troubleshooting, it'd save you a significant amount of time. Even though it's still a pretty quick process anyways, it would still save you a little bit of extra time if you didn't want to go through all that. So anyways, this is completely reassembled, and I'm going to take this back out to the car and plug it in and see if it works. All right, I'm back in the car. I've got my map reader light assembly ready to go back in. I think I'll just do a quick test before I do the full reassembly here. So I'll just put the connector back into the socket here. Good. And then I'll just put this up here temporarily for the test. Okay. So right now my door selector switch is set to door. If I put it to, well, in any mode here, I should be able to turn the lights on individually. So that's good. So they work as should be. If I put it to on, the light should go on, which is good. Both lights go on. And my rear dome light also goes on too. You can't see that in the video. If I put it back to door and open the door, both lights fade on, which is good. And if I close the door, both lights should fade off in a second. If I put it back to off and on, we'll wait for them to fade out. I do also just want to test the mood light over here. So when I turn the ignition to ACC, good, that light comes back on, so that's perfect. So that seems to be functioning normally. So it looks like this unit is ready to go. It looks like it's fully fixed, and we'll do the final reassembly now. So the rest of the installation should be fairly simple. It's just these two metal clips need to be pushed back underneath of the fabric over here, and that's what holds the back side, or I guess the front side of the unit in. Just make sure when you're pushing it back in that the fabric has been tucked underneath of the little lip here. And I think it should just be a simple shove in. Yeah, there we go. And the last two things will be just to put the screws back into the sunglasses holder area. Okay, so that's fully reassembled now. And that's it. Well, I hope you found this video useful for how to repair your map reader light unit if you have that same problem that I do where one or both the lights don't turn on when the door opens. Hopefully after the fix, both should be operating normally as they should be. And hopefully you've been able to save yourself a little bit of money. All right, thanks guys for watching. Take care.